What's up, witches? My name is Syzygy and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then hi, hello, nice to have you. Today I wanted to make a little video about my feelings about my art and my relationship with my art over the past few years, as well as to talk about major inspirations and some of my artistic goals and journeys. I will also be going over personal mental health stuff, such as my views on my art over the years and how they have changed as time has passed, so there may be some more heavy discussion thrown in as we go on, so keep that in mind if you choose to keep on watching. If that sounds like something that might interest you though to hear about, then stick around and strap in, because I'm just gonna jump right into it. One thing that I'm asked quite often and pretty incessantly in the comments of my videos and pretty much every time on stream is, when did you start drawing, or when did you first get interested in art? I can't really place when I first started drawing because I was definitely the type to color in coloring books and to sketch out little drawings when I was really young, as most kids do, though I wouldn't really consider that art in the way that I view it now. When I first started to become interested in art for realsies was at the tail end of my 4th grade year when I was around 10 years old. I remember that I started to draw a little bit more seriously at that time, mostly drawings of Pikachu because I was pretty obsessed with Pikachu. Not Pokemon, no, I was obsessed with Pikachu specifically. It's the autism, what can I say? However, what really got me interested in art was in the summer between 4th and 5th grade, I saw the Warrior Cats animated series. I've always had a special interest in cats, still do, again, it's the autism. So when I saw the Warrior Cats animated series on YouTube, I was obsessed. Around this time, I had also become interested in Five Nights at Freddy's, so I first started out drawing basically furries and also quadrupeds, which to many of you might be funny because in current day my art is bugs, humans, and humanoids, and I don't like drawing furries or quadrupeds. But yeah, even though I didn't and still don't like drawing animals that much, that's kind of what I started out with. I actually had an account on Scratch when I was a kid, if any of you know what Scratch is. I was actually an artist/animator, and though I was never like popular or anything like that, I remember having people look forward to my projects and stuff. However, even then, that was just a slight interest in art. I was not yet the drawing vampire girl. Yes, that was my middle school reputation. What pushed me over the edge from an art enjoyer to an art obsessor was for Xmas that year in 5th grade, my mother got me a book. This book was Manga for Beginners, Midnight Monsters by Christopher Hart, and oh my god, the second I got this book I was in love. Now, I've always had this one really helpful artistic skill in which I can just easily look at a reference and copy it, like, exactly. When I was younger, I wasn't as good at it as I am currently with all of my more experience, but even then I was pretty decent at replicating the anime art contained in the pages of the book. And well, once I started, I couldn't stop. My feelings about drawing cats or foxes and furries and animatronics were always like meh. I didn't really like drawing those that much. It was an alright pastime when I was really bored, but otherwise I just kinda doodled and really never felt the true drive to commit myself to art for hours at a time. However, drawing humans, on the other hand, was what finally inspired me to start taking art more seriously and dedicating large amounts of time to it. Going into middle school, my mom bought me a $100 set of Tombow watercolor markers, as well as a couple of mixed media books that had watercolor paper I could used to draw on. I was that one super cringe kid who would take my mixed media books to class along with all of my microline pens and Tombow markers, and I would do like full art pieces in the middle of class. No joke, I would really draw in class. Not just doodle, but sketch, line, color, and shade. I was a bit obsessive, if you couldn't tell. However, being an open artist in middle school also had its downsides for me. Growing up, I was always the weird autistic kid and didn't really want to engage with the rest of the other kids around me. Kids would be off happily playing together or doing group circle time, and all I really wanted to do was to stay at my desk and read a book, or as my art developed, I wanted to stay at my desk and draw. I also went through a period where I expressed myself and my interests through the way that I dressed as well. I would wear a lot of black, red, and white. I would wear dresses and skirts and tutus and bows and fingerless gloves and leg warmers and thigh highs. Yep. The pastel goth and creepy cute aesthetic started early for me. Being the kid that liked to express themselves was really hard. I never got bullied or anything like that because everyone was much too scared to bully me, but I did get picked on in a way that hurt a ton regardless. People that didn't know me would gossip about me because I was weird for always drawing all the time, and I got this reputation of being creepy and bad just because I liked to express myself. But the worst part of it all, and what affected my art at the time the most, was how friends would treat me and also the things that I liked. So I discussed it a little bit more in my Stop Comparing Yourself to Other Artists video, but my friends in middle school used to always shit on me and my interests and nitpick my art. If I drew too much Vocaloid, I would get friends coming to me all passive-aggressive like, "Vocaloid's cringe, you could draw something else." I had an ex who aggressively pushed me into drawing furry art, and then when I did to appease them, people all around the school started calling me an ooh-woo-oh-whoa furry and making fun of me. I also had friends that took advantage of my naivete and would pay me absurdly low amounts of money for art that took up to 8 hours to make. It was all really bad and hurtful, and it started making me question not only my abilities, but also my passion for art as a whole. Rather than becoming defensive about my work, I would instead insult it before they could. I would defend myself by being like, "Yeah, my art sucks and it's bad," before any of my plastic friends at the time could do the same. I also began cringe-shaming other people and judging others before, they could do the same to me, all as a way to fit in with a crowd that wasn't always the butt of the joke. This changed my relationship with my art at the time quite dramatically. I went from loving to draw and to create and just being a little bit insecure about it, but looking forward to improvement, to being completely and totally ashamed of my work, hating it in myself for not being good enough, and not even liking what I was drawing. It was around this time that I had also started posting my art online, and the really quiet reception and the lack of praise for my hard work made me feel even worse. In the spring of 2018, I finally broke up with the aforementioned ex, the one that kind of pushed me into drawing furries. Though I won't get too into the details of that relationship, as it is kind of unrelated, and it would also be, disrespectful to them, as we've both moved on and improved since being dumb, mentally ill teenagers, I will say that the whole dynamic with that person was incredibly traumatizing, and the ending of all of that pain caused a rift in my in-person friend group. My mental health pretty much collapsed under the weight of all the stress and pain, and for the entire summer and fall of that year in 2018, I didn't draw at all. There was a period of 6 months in which I laid down my markers and my pencil and just kind of stopped. I can't really imagine doing that nowadays, as art is pretty much like my only hobby outside of reading, and it is now a coping mechanism even for me now, but yeah, there was a really dark and painful period that I just quit drawing entirely. I hated everything I made, I hated posting it and only getting one like, and I just felt really discouraged. Finally, as things began to get a little bit better, I began drawing again towards the tail end of 2018 and began practicing on my skills after so long of not doing it. At this point, I was still feeling really down on myself and my abilities, but I was starting to get back into the groove of making things. A while later, in late 2019, is around the time that I started my current Instagram account, so if you want to see what some of my art that I had made at the time looked like, you just need to scroll down pretty much to the bottom. Even though I'd started getting back into art and dipping my toes back into content creation, I still didn't really find that my passion for art was invigorated again for quite a long time. It was around this time that I figured out part of my lack of passion for art had to do with my tools and setup. Now, no shade against traditional art or traditional artists, but having been a traditional artist and a digital artist for pretty long amounts of time each, I can say that without a doubt I prefer digital art. Traditional art is incredibly difficult to perfect, especially for a dumb teenager who didn't know how to anatomy or character design, and still barely knows how to character design. Honestly, props to any watercolor artists, painters, and otherwise traditional art boys, because damn, traditional art hard! But yeah, I was starting to struggle and stagnate in my artistic abilities, and I actually kind of want to chat about that with all of you for a second, because it's something that happens to a lot of artists. When you first start drawing regularly and working on improving your art, you're likely to start improving incredibly rapidly. You get accustomed to a very clear visual of your own improvement, and you expect to continue seeing that improvement on the same scale and in the same time frame as when you had started. However, when you reach a certain part in your artistic journey, there will be a time where your art appears to halt entirely in improvement. You stop being able to see clear progression in each piece that you make, and it's likely to make you think that you've just stalled in your development completely. However, this is not at all the case. Rather, you just hit the wall of the intermediate stage. You are no longer a novice or a beginner. You are instead skilled enough to not improve as rapidly as before. This is not to say that you've actually stalled in your development entirely, no. It will just become less clear to you. In fact, artists watching this, if you're feeling down about your work and you feel like you haven't improved in months, then I encourage you to take a look at work from a few months ago and just look at it. You are bound to see some mistakes and things that you have improved upon in your current work when looking at it for a while. Just because you can't see it as readily as before doesn't mean that the improvement isn't there, guys. I promise. Don't beat yourself up about it, please. At this time in my artistic journey, though, I didn't really see my own improvement. I was just unhappy with all of my artwork and was apathetic about creating in general. I did draw here and there a bit, but all the way up until November of 2020 I'd fallen out of love with drawing and didn't feel the same way about it that I once did. Finally, Black Friday in 2020 rolls around, and while I'm browsing on Amazon for a new laptop, I also come across a few drawing tablets. Reminder, I was feeling quite a bit dissatisfied with my tools, those being traditional art tools, at the time, so it occurred to me that perhaps trying out a new medium would perhaps spark my love for the arts once more. I spent like 150 USD on the tablet, just kind of begging and praying to myself that it would be worth it. I wanted my drive to make art to be reignited desperately, and the venture into digital art was like a last-ditch effort. When the tablet and my laptop came though, I was not disappointed. In just a couple of months, I was obsessed with digital art once again. I started working on improving as well. If I were to describe what I like most about my current digital art tools would be the ability to freely manipulate the sketch and to easily edit and change things. When doing traditional art, you can't really flip the canvas and things can become lopsided really easily. Oh, and God forbid, you mess up in the coloring or lining process where you can't just click undo to fix an accidental streak. So yeah, after like 2 years of feeling discouraged about my art, I started up on pumping stuff out again. Obviously, a lot of my old art is pretty wonky, as the transition to digital was not entirely smooth for me, but it was fun and invigorating to try out a new medium and to build up my skills in it. At the time, I started working on an old project called Abaddon, which is permanently discontinued as of right now, as the old memories attached to those characters are quite traumatic. I will go over that in more detail in a future video, but what is relevant here is that the creation of this old series of characters inspired me to draw more. When I first began drawing characters, I didn't have much specific inspirations outside of anime and music that I liked at the time. Though I always felt a calling to the pastel goth creepy cute aesthetic I currently adore, I actually kind of threw it on the back burner because I thought I would get called cringe or something if I swayed more in that direction. And that was a major mistake. Take notes, artists. Always draw what you actually genuinely want to draw. Don't just avoid drawing something you want to draw out of fear of being called cringe. Don't just draw popular characters to get popular. Draw them if you actually want to. I made this mistake a lot when I was first starting out on digital art. I drew a lot of Has Been Hotel and Helluva Boss characters at the time so that people would notice my work more, but as I've gotten older and have kind of come to the realization that I'm not and never really was as big of a fan of those works as I thought, they've kind of gotten to be frustrating for me, which is why I deleted them relatively recently from my DeviantArt. The pressure to suppress your passions is real, especially for neurodivergent people that have been scathed before. But listen when I say that it will benefit you all to draw things you actually want to draw. Back on topic though, despite me finding an interest in art again, old habits die hard. I was still harshly and unfairly shitting on my own work and criticizing myself to an extremely mean-spirited degree. Please see the aforementioned Stop Comparing Yourself to Other Artists video for more information and specifics. But this habit was hard to kick and stuck with me all up until last year. In the time that I started doing digital art though, I started my channel in December of 2021, about a year after I first bought my drawing tablet. I actually still have the same tablet to this day. A lot of people have asked me in the past how to start up an art channel actually, and my answer is just to make videos. It's as simple as just making art. Don't get too in your own head about it, just make what you want to make and have fun. Around the time I started on my channel, I also started to play Hollow Knight, like, a lot. I have like 300 hours on the game. Yes, be concerned about me. Complete side note, but I wanted to stream HK while drinking and being a little bit inebriated for funsies just sometime. Just let me know if you want to see that in the comments because it sounds fun to make. I've mentioned it on stream before, but I do want to do that. Anyways, back on track, I started drawing a lot of Hollow Knight art and writing Hollow Knight fanfics, and I even made my whole AU, so the game was and still is a huge special interest of mine. It was kind of a wonderful feeling to be passionate about a fandom again after so long. The game inspired me to kind of get out of my comfort zone both as a writer and as an artist, so I owe a lot of my artistic development to it, I would say, especially in the last year. Alongside my Hollow Knight stuff, I soon found myself leaning into creating OCs that y'all will recognize if you follow my OC content. Yep, I finally just decided to embrace my love for cutesy lolita shit and made all of my Phantasmagoria OCs to fit inside, or at least to be adjacent to that aesthetic. One of my biggest inspirations that kind of inspired me to just do what I wanted to do was Drimalja, also known by the names Tirza and Dollyguts. Their art, especially now, is so inspiring, and I'm glad that I found their work because they just kind of inspired me to do what I love, so that's really cool. After improving on my bad habit of insulting my art and beating myself up so much, I've felt so much better about my art as of late. In combination with me actually creating things I'm passionate about, I've really boosted my confidence in regards to it. Of course, there's still the occasional backslide that makes me feel discouraged, but I now know I just have to push on and keep creating. With all of that being said, I hope you all enjoyed that little ramble, and I pray that it wasn't, like, entirely boring. I also hope that it might have been inspiring and helpful to someone who has maybe had a similar or comparable experience to my own in regards to their relationship with their artwork. I know that sometimes it can be hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but just keep moving and you'll get there eventually. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to check out my Stop Comparing Yourself to Other Artists video because it's pretty adjacent to this one in terms of stories and vibes. If you enjoyed this video, please rate and maybe subscribe if you feel inclined to do so. If you'd like to see some more of my art, both safe for work and not safe for work, 18+ for that last one, follow the link to the card below where you can find all of my socials. I hope you all have a nice rest of your day, and don't forget, stay magical.